So, hello, peace be upon you. That's the Muslim way, or in fact, the ancient way that, different religions like Christianity and Judaism included used to say hello. It means peace be upon you. Please, I think I said peace be upon you already, isn't it? No, in the Arabic it's assalamu alaikum, and in Hebrew it's shalom aleichem, something like that. And in Christianity, I've heard in a church a priest say peace be upon you. Okay, in this country, I bet in Arab countries they say assalamu alaikum as well. Christians say that as well because they know their joint heritage. So anyway, let me get on with my quick intro, the three basics about what is this show about? What is this thing on my head? That's what I'm putting this on for a bit of fun today and explain why in a bit. So first of all, this is a weekly question answer. You can go to bigquestionsanswered.com if you want to watch previous shows and a whole load of other things. Like, where did I learn this stuff? It's on that website. Lots of videos, books, everything for free. I'm not making any money out of this. I really enjoy this. It's also a weekly Q&A, so that it's a question answer so that we can have a chat between each other, and a very casual chat. And so if I don't explain something, you can ask me, oh, how about this point, that point. You can be annoyed as well, like I don't really get upset about these things, so just ask your questions. But also having it every week, it means that we can develop a relationship where you can think of new questions as you go along. So, or even just if you can't ask questions in the live show, just comment in the videos and I get notifications. So that's the one thing. Another thing I really want to talk about is that although this is happiness and Islam, you don't have to be a Muslim, follow Islam to use any of the ideas here, because Islam is based on your nature. So the idea, the teachings of Islam, even everything to do with Islam is being taught that it's in your nature. So all human beings have the same essential nature, and so it works for everybody. And I really want this to be as useful to everybody, as many people as possible. So please, Muslim or not, really doesn't matter. As I tried to explain just now, that Islam is a religion that encompasses all religions. It's the only religion, in fact, that says that it doesn't matter what religion you are, you can go to heaven. You don't have to be a Muslim to go to heaven. So I'm just trying to give you an idea that this is not an exclusive, this is an inclusive show. Show sounds like as if it's somehow professional or something. What else is there to say? Oh yes, so what can you talk about? What do I talk about in this program, this whatever you want to call it, question answer? Everything about life. Everything about life affects your happiness. So today we're talking about sex, we're talking about all sorts of other things. That's, by the way, there's one main topic, but there's always to have happiness tips and so ideas from different people around the world and on the internet. I look at them. So are we talking about all sorts of stuff? And even if the main topic is sex or in the environment, like last time, whatever, you can ask me about anything to do with life. So please do that. Let's get on with the rest of it. So happiness tip. This is what I like to begin with. A couple of minutes of, let me just copy paste stuff so you can read. So this is the stuff I use to change my life all the time. I change my life, like affect my life every single day. And they're simple, they're logical, and they're super effective. Like, it's amazing how, for me, they're super effective, right? So I just post things in the comments. Please ask questions there. But anyway, look at so often, especially in this materialistic world, we never feel that we have enough. Okay, how do you counteract that? This is a saying from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I might throw in a saying from different prophets and things, but anyway, look at those below you and do not look at those above you, for it is the best way not to belittle the favors of Allah, God. Allah is just the name of God. Okay, and actually, it's the name of God in different religions, including Judaism, for example. Jesus said Eli, which is effectively Allah in Hebrew or Aramaic. Anyway, so yeah, so what does this mean? Look at those below you. So look at those who have less than you. So this is just a translation, and so from the original Arabic, so it might not be the best translation. But anyway, look at those who have less than you, basically, and not those who have more than you. So in the materialistic world, we tend to look at like people who've got more than you. And you go, oh, if only I had that, and if only I had that. And that's a brilliant way to make yourself miserable. But a really smart thing you could do is look at those people who've got less than you, and immediately you go, wow, I'm so lucky in what I have. And I love this thing at the end, for it is the best way not to belittle the favors of God. Like, God is giving, like, that last bit of the sentence is like just reminding you've got so many things and you're so lucky, and you're belittling, you're actually being rude to God, who is giving you so many things. So I don't know, just really simple, really I think it's pretty simple. In maybe you should try it out to see if you believe that it actually makes any difference. But yeah, what else is there to say about that? I'd like to contemplate on it. Before I forget, though, I said I was going to introduce my hat. Some people might think that I'm wearing a hat because, you know, I recently shaved all my hair off, but that wouldn't make sense considering that I shaved my hair off to make a point, and you can watch that video a couple of days ago in my YouTube channel. And I did it on the video on the camera, so that's not why. The reason is because I'm trying to demonstrate all sorts of teachings of Islam. One of the things is to wear a hat. You don't always have to wear a hat if you're Muslim, but Muslim men wear hats, Muslim women wear scarves, whatever, just like Judaism as well. And the point of it is that it's kind of the more clothes you wear, the more advanced it is. It's kind of like Islam is supposed to be demonstrating an advanced lifestyle. Let's get back to the happiness tip, although I'm wondering what else to say about it. So look at those below you and not look at those above you, for it is the best way not to belittle the favors of God. Yeah, so what are the favors of God? Like, I love to say nice haircut, thanks, Planet Adams. So what are the favors of God? One of the things I love to talk about is just being able to breathe air. And I purposely remember certain things to help myself. So one of the things I purposely try to remember is the time when I found it actually very difficult to breathe. It was super painful just to breathe. I got sick or whatever it was, but I said to myself, I must remember this. And so I keep valuing the really small things. When I start valuing the really small things, I begin to value everything else. So one of the other things I love to talk about, which the Quran likes to remind us of, is how the whole earth is in service of humanity, including the clouds in particular. How the clouds are in our service? Well, they are recycling and cleaning our water. And you know how heavy water is? It's a ton for just this much, one cubic meter. Okay. Well, it's a bit outside the screen. I had a hand down there. Anyway, the point is, it's not much water and it's really hard to move around, but the clouds move it around as if it's no problem at all and clean it for you. And there's this whole amazing system. And if we didn't do that, we'd be dead so easily. I could go on and on and on. One thing I wanted to also talk about in a previous show that comes to mind is, do you know, like, just to have honey, right? A drop of honey takes like a couple of 1,000 miles of journey for a bee. So all these amazing things happening that we just take absolutely for granted. And when we take it for granted, we actually become depressed. Yeah, it's really strange. It's this happiness paradox, I like to call it. It's like when you have so much, you forget how lucky you are to have it. So it's really important not to belittle the favors of God. So, okay, hopefully that was useful. Hopefully that helped somebody. Definitely helps me all the time. It's one of my favorite sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So the main topic is how to be good at sex. So let me quickly explain, why am I bothering talking about it? What's that got to do with happiness? I don't think I have to totally explain that too much, because obviously, you know, sex makes you happy. But what I want to explain is that although sex is not the meaning of life, although Freud, I think, said that it was at some point, we could talk about that. You could interject any time in the comments. I don't think sex is the meaning of life, or the purpose of life. But it's just one of the pieces of the puzzle that makes your life better. It's one of the human needs that if you fulfill them in a proper way, you feel happy. If you fulfill them in a bad way, they can make you absolutely miserable as well. And the other thing I want to say, in a sort of in a different direction, is if you want to be good at sex, then everything else in your life affects that. So, for example, it's known that if you're stressed out, then you're not going to perform in sex, because sex requires concentration or focus on one thing and forgetting everything else. For example, so if you're stressed, that's not good. And in my question answers, I always talk about how to reduce stress, how to generally be happy, how to improve, how to eat well by not eating too much, for example. Just about everything to do with life affects your happiness, and affects your ability to be good at sex. And then the second thing that comes to mind before, as I'm introducing, so I'm almost trying to be professional and helpful. And one thing I was supposed to do, no, I wasn't supposed to do it yet. I'm still doing the introduction. Okay, sorry. I was going to say I was going to post things in the chat all the time. But anyway, yeah. So the second thing I want to talk about is, people might say, "Oh, like, why are you talking about sex, and why are you so casual about it," or something. Some people might talk about it like that. And so Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported saying that God is not shy of the truth. And then he said, "Do not enter women in their anuses." So maybe that'll be people going, "Oh, what did you say just then?" or something like that, right? Sex is a part of our lives, and we have to be, and if you don't practice it well or do it well, then you're going to be miserable. And maybe this will be a bit of a surprise to people who are not Muslim, but in Islam, it encompasses everything to do with your life. And so some people might see that as a bad thing. Oh, so many rules. No. These are guidances or guides to help you, and you can take it or leave it, is the way Islam teaches faith. The Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. So these are just for you. Everything God teaches is to make your life better. So let's get on with the thing I want to talk about. The first point. So what I'm going to try to do, rather than cover out everything, which is why, which is a really bad idea, and which is why I have weekly shows, so I can always come back to topics if you want me to cover them or something. One of the things I'm going to do is just cover three main areas. So the first thing is, and by the way, I'm not going to be talking so much about, let me paste this first point before I forget it again. I'm not going to be talking about actions too much, because that would be the wrong focus. The actions of sex come naturally when your mindset is correct, when you're healthy as well, and all these kind of things. And I'll be talking about those briefly. Some actions or basic things are necessary, but also actions depend, like sexual actions or positions, as we call them, depend on the people, their fitness levels, and all these kind of things. Whatever, we'll talk about it briefly at some point in this program. So do not look at others and porn. This makes you hate your partner's appearance. So that was just my main point that I want to cover. Point one that I want to cover out of three. So if you, this is not about saying don't do this, don't do that. I'm going to talk about the logic of these things. So if you have to remember, your brain is what we call plastic. It's very easily affected by people's opinions and what you see, what you say. People do this thing called, what's it called when you say something and you start believing it. So I am powerful. I don't totally believe in doing that kind of thing, but there's some sort of phrase that's related to that. But people say stuff and then they start believing it, and there's some element of truth in that. We are very much affected by what we see and what we hear. For example, why do people wear ties, which are effectively ribbons on their necks? That's really crazy, isn't it? It's like, why do I not wear a ribbon around my head? Or why do I wear a hat, for example? I don't know, whatever. The point is, we are very much affected by what we see and what we hear, movies and things like that. So when, for example, you're looking at pornography or a movie or just a woman or man out in real life, okay, then what you're doing is you're training your brain to like that person's body. And this is on the assumption that, for now, let's just make it simple, you're already married or something, right? And often people say, I've heard men say that it's just automatic, it's natural to look at other women or something like that, or maybe women say that as well. The thing is, if you want to benefit yourself, you need to control yourself. Just like we don't just eat ice cream all the time. Yeah, it might be nice, but it'd be bad for you in the long term to just eat ice cream for breakfast, dinner, and lunch, whatever. So I'm going to come to your interesting comments or something in a second, Planet Adam. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. So Planet Adams in the comments has said self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. So what you're doing, you're by looking at different people. Say you look at, I don't want to get into like parts of the bodies and all this kind of stuff, because Islam tries to tell you, although it's very open about certain things, try to be subtle about your language as well. So let's say you're looking at a person's body, or let's say a woman's body or something, you focus on that particular part, then you wish your wife was like that, and she's not. Okay, she might not be, for example. And then what you're doing is, in your brain, your brain is getting comfortable with that idea, and you're wishing your wife's body was like that, and then all these negative feelings will be put on your wife or your girlfriend, whatever, and then you won't be good at having sex, because you don't imagine yourself as having sex with somebody who is good looking anymore, because you removed that idea, even though at one point you did think that she was good looking. So when you don't look, and this comes back to the little thing I said in the beginning, look at those below you and not above you. It's the idea is, I mean, you don't the idea is, if you're not looking at everything you don't have, okay, then you're not developing this the grass is greener on the other side sort of mentality. But the flip of that happens is that you feel that you're so lucky with what you have, that you have the the most beautiful wife in the world, sort of thing. Okay. And that can definitely happen because your brain, your mind is plastic, your thoughts are plastic. Plastic means like moldable. We're so easily affected by that. You can check psychology websites. Is the brain or mind plastic? I could maybe find references for you if you really want to. So that's one point. The some people also, I think I just kind of mentioned this point already in a way, but some people undervalue, I'm not sure if that's the proper word, looking at other people, like, oh, doesn't matter if I'm just going to do it from my perspective, man looking at a woman. Oh, it doesn't matter if I look at that woman's legs or whatever it is or something. What's the big deal? It's only natural, like I just said. And so sometimes you need somebody to say things to you to bring out the fact that it's not great. So the fornication of the eyes is a lustful look. Okay, so fornication, big word, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly what it means. I think it means like having sex or something with somebody you're not married to. I think that's the word. But anyway, it's a kind of fornication, like kind of adultery, whatever you want to call it. It's not a small thing. Don't belittle that thing that you're doing. So yeah, that's another point. What else is there to say? Oh, Mars exploration from Indian occupied Kashmir. Hey, nice. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Mars. Exploration from Kashmir. I'm originally from Kashmir, apparently. Yeah. So yeah, part of my family. So thanks. So what else is there to say? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some basic things about lasting longer when you're having sex, because I've had conversations with people, or at least one person. I don't always talk about these things to people, but and like I was saying, I could just keep going, like there's no need to stop. And he was like, "Oh, how do you do that? Like, I last like a couple of minutes, and that's the end of it." Okay, and you kind of hear that in the movies a lot as well, like as some sort of joke or something. And so, how do you last for a very long time? And it should be natural. It's not like some magic trick, or it should be something shouldn't be particularly difficult. And the way you do that is a couple of things. I'm just looking for a couple of useful references, but because I'm put everything in order, but really simple things, like really logical. So in Islam, it says there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him: three people are cruel. Dot dot dot. A couple of things, but which includes a person who has sex with his wife before foreplay. What has that got to do with lasting? It's very natural and very weird if you don't do foreplay, which is foreplay means, just in case, you can Google it, I suppose, but means like easing into the act of sex, right? Actually, and there's a lot of sayings by Prophet Muhammad about this, which is caress your wife, be intimate, be even playful. This is just natural part of being a human being and connecting with people. And the reason why I'm talking about it just being a very natural thing is that I'm trying to bring back this idea that everything in Islam, and even if you practice other religions from their original source, you find that they teach you how to connect with the earth and other human beings and yourself and God and all these things in a natural way. And when you do things naturally, things work better. So how does that make you last longer? Well, let's just say when you are relaxed and you are let's say if you do it slowly. I think there was a joke somewhere I watched in a movie or something: young people do it quick and finish quickly as well. But if you're doing it slowly, what happens is your body, I'm trying to avoid going into too many details because it's just my personal kind of experience, but your body gets used to the act of sex, and when you're not rushing too much, you just end up lasting longer because you're comfortable, you're doing it slowly. Let's say, from my personal experience, the body prepares itself to last longer as well. It like ejaculates a little bit, and then you just keep going forever as long as you want. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, it really should not be like when I told this friend of mine, he's like, wow, like how do you do that? It's like some big magic or like amazing feat or something to just keep going. It doesn't mean I can keep going forever, unless I really make an effort to. But you don't have to. I mean, and that kind of feeds into another point, which I'm not really sticking to my points. Actually, I am, I suppose. You know what? I've made 3 points, but they're kind of like millions of points, and I've tried to categorize them, but I'm going to fail at that anyway. So the other point I want to go back to, this idea of porn. Porn is this kind of weird sports show where people are trying to be super exceptional, and they're trying to be they're not trying to connect with another human being at all. It's like, look what I can do, what extreme activity I can do, how well I can do it. I can do it standing up, carrying around this other person at the same time, doing backflips and I don't know what. Yeah, that is not what sex should be about. And when sex becomes look what I can do, or as almost a sports activity, then you lose that relationship, and you're having a really bad you're not fulfilling the purpose of sex, which is intimacy and connection, and fulfilling the other person's rights as well on you. And when I say rights on you, you might say that's a bit of a weird phrase. This is exactly what Islam teaches. Islam says your wife has a right upon you, your family has a right upon you, you have a right upon yourself, which is maybe a strange way to put it, but yeah, cool. I appreciate your openness. I thanks for saying that. So yeah, so when you think, so I'm gonna kind of, as I say things, it reminds me of other things, and it looks like I probably not put things in. Actually, I'm gonna try to stay in some sort of order. Okay, so what is my next point? Yeah, so Islam so some people really don't like religion because of all the rules, and it says religion say don't do this, do that. I would like to say that religion says don't do this because it's rubbish. For example, don't do anal sex, right? Because like, what's good about it? Without getting into too much detail, small hole, uncomfortable, right? Like, why would you do that, right? The reason why people do that is because they might see pornography, they might see a movie or something, and that those very fake well, they're acted out, okay, so they're not real, but they're made to look great when they're absolutely not. So a friend of mine who likes to talk about the like research into pornography and the problems with it, and it's a really, maybe if that sounds weird to you, I think it's a very smart thing to do, because it's one of the big problems that we face in modern lifestyle at the moment. So he said that there's supposed to be this famous scene. I'm just trying to explain like how fake pornography is, and how we shouldn't try to follow what we see there, or idealize, like, or try to try to not be impressed by these things that you see on TV and pornography. So my friend was saying there's supposed to be this famous scene where it's supposed to be like such an erotic scene, but the people who are recording it were feeling so disgusted because of the horrible smell that was coming out of it due to those different acts. I don't even know what it was, right? But it doesn't surprise me. So it's like, obviously you can't smell what you're watching, but also what you're watching is highly edited. Yeah, stuff like that. So what else is there to say? So yeah, so Islam says don't do anal sex, but like, it's not a big deal. Like, focus on the stuff that does make you happy. And Islam, rather God, is saying like, I'm giving you all sorts of weird options that you could make up for yourself. Like, you could stick it up somebody's nose, right? There probably would be somebody who would find any hole or something and use it. But it's like, don't waste your time. Don't do stupid things. Don't ruin, or rather, don't ruin the act. Okay, so what else does it say? Fake behavior, masturbation. Let's talk about that quickly. So Right. So the first thing about it, I'm trying to avoid saying don't do this, do that, whatever. Actually, I'm exactly saying that. So Islam's philosophy, as I've been told by my spiritual teachers, known as Khalifas, is that it's not about taking things away from people. Islam first offers you something fantastic and then says, don't do this thing, which is a bit rubbish. That's kind of the summary of the kind of Islamic philosophy. And of course, the philosophy in different religions. I remember my best friends at university were Jewish, and there were so many things that I was like, that we had that were completely the same in our faiths. So a lot of the things I'm saying here are probably the same in Judaism, for example. And Judaism, like Jesus said he was a Jewish prophet, so that means it's also true in Christianity, for example. Corrupt the beauty of relationships. Yeah. Yep, that's what pornography does. It corrupts the beauty of relationships. That's a nice way of saying it. Okay. So getting back to masturbation, I was going to say Islam, there's not an exact clear teachings on it, but there's all these different kind of people who looked at what Prophet Muhammad said and the Quran said and tried to figure out what was, infer stuff. Like, for example, what does masturbation entail? Well, there's actually two kinds, you'd be surprised. But the one when you're doing it by yourself, okay? So the one when you're doing it by yourself, you would often have to think of somebody when you're doing it. You have to put your brain and your physical parts are all connected, right? So you can't really have sex masturbate without actually thinking of somebody and thinking you're doing something to somebody, and that somebody is often not somebody you're married to. Because, for example, if you're masturbating, then you'll probably think, and that means you're not doing it with your wife, then that means it's kind of like a bit, you could think about your wife, so it's possible, but like, because you're not having sex with your wife and you're masturbating, you're kind of tempted to think of somebody else because it's kind of frustrating that your wife's not doing it with you at that particular time. Maybe. Right? So it's not like masturbation is like out the window, don't do it, but by inference of the other Islamic teaching, which is like don't think of other people, like other women, other men, whatever it is, therefore you probably shouldn't do it. But oh yeah, I said there's two types. What if your partner helps you, for example? That's different, isn't it? That then you're definitely thinking about your partner when your partner's helping you. So whatever. Oh yeah. So, but so generally I would say avoid it, because let's think about it. What is the purpose of sex? Is to, let's say, in the long term, have children. And so sex in a particular way, which is vaginal sex, should be the ideal way. That plays into the idea of don't do anal sex. But also, if you're not doing normal sex, let's say, and you're masturbating, your body is you're tricking your body in all sorts of ways. You're imagining stuff, but also your organs are not in the place they're supposed to be. Then your hands, for example, and then we don't know. There's a lot of stuff medical science, whatever, doesn't know, but we do know all sorts of reactions and chemical changes happen. And when those chemical changes happen at the wrong time, that's going to be bad for you. I'm just looking at the time. I'm supposed to be trying to keep some sort of pattern of time. What was I supposed to do? 30 minutes. Let's maybe move on to the next thing. Let's move on to the next thing. So what I was going to say is, like, for example, masturbation is supposed to, when you have sex generally, is supposed to increase some sort of immunity chemicals, right? That goes up, and then if you keep doing it like loads and loads of times, then it could cause a imbalance in your ability to be immune to diseases. I've got a theory. But anyway, so let's move on to the next thing. I really appreciate your comments, by the way, Planet Adams. It makes it more interesting for me. So it's cool. Yeah, I like talking to people and stuff. It's a bit easier than just kind of reading and talking to myself. So I don't mind. It's cool. I know lots of people watch this non-live, and it probably helps them because more and more people are watching this stuff. So I'm glad it helps. I don't mind at the end of the day if nobody chats to me back. Maybe though in the future, if I keep doing it for kind of 100 times or something, I don't know, this show. So let's go on to the next thing. Know how to love. This tells you what to do. That's just my little comment. Oh, that's why I was going to see. I put things in the comments, and then what I was supposed to do, I totally forgot, is I was supposed to click it, and then I'd know how to cut things into chapters after the video is done. You know, YouTube chapters, so you can jump to things you're interested in. But quite frankly, these little chapters probably don't mean anything because I just had loads of ideas and I tried to put them into 3 categories because I thought that'd be cool. But anyway, let's move on. So know how to love. This tells you what to do. So what I mean by that is if you know how to love correctly, then the actions of sex happen automatically. And I probably talked about that in many ways already in the last few minutes, but I'm going to talk about seemingly completely opposite or very different things about what love is first, because there's a very I like to say funny understanding of love that we have in the Western world at the moment. It's called romantic love. Let me tell you, sometimes we have these ideas in our heads, but we don't say them out loud about, like, for example, romantic love. But when we say them out loud, we're like, are we serious? Do we really all believe this stuff? Okay, so what is romantic love? Okay, it's an idea that I think came about 200 years ago by a certain group of people. It's not like we always believe this stuff, okay? And it goes something like this, that people have soulmates, okay? And so somewhere out there in the world, there is somebody destined for you. This is idea of romantic love I don't believe in, right? And you can quite easily, there's some sort of weird magnetic force that quite often attracts those people wherever they are in the world to meet each other and be connected with each other. And not only does this idea of romantic love end when you meet, it's how you relate to each other in romantic love, that everything should be automatic. So you make a gesture, like people, you can almost read each other's mind. Like, this is like what we all accept of romantic love. This is why people, especially earlier on in their relationships, they get frustrated with the other person. It's like, why can't you understand what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling? I myself was probably subject. I'm quite sure I was subject to these silly ideas, probably because I watched too many Hollywood movies. But if that was true, there would be no divorce. Yeah, right. If we had I mean, thanks for that. I appreciate that comment, because so Planet Adam says if that was true about soulmates, then there will be no divorce. And the funny thing is that many people think they found their soulmate, like millions of people, and yet they divorce after a couple of years. In fact, what tends to happen statistically is that people are girlfriend and boyfriend for a long time, but when they finally get married and have to live together and be responsible together, that's so boring that they quickly get divorced. It doesn't take too long. So divorce rates are very high, and I'd say that is partly down to this very odd idea of love. Now, when I say it's funny, the reason why particularly I thought it was funny is because there was this guy I like, Alain de Botton. I mentioned him before. Alain space DE space Botton, like BOTTON. He's actually British. He's not French or anything, but it sounds like it, doesn't it? You should YouTube him. like search romantic love. He's the funniest philosopher, if you want to call it that. And he talks about all the flaws of romantic love, modern day idea of love. Anyway, let's move on. Just check that out. It's really funny. I'm not as funny as him, so you should listen to his version. So that's that idea of love, and hopefully you're beginning to realize that kind of doesn't make sense. But what I want to propose is something that is work much better, works in real life, and develops your love more and more and more if you do it properly. Okay, loads of people who are Muslim, for example, don't experience that because they're simply not practicing Islam. They're not practicing Islam day by day. So if you're saying, oh, hang on a minute, I'm a Muslim, I should have a perfect relationship. Well, you actually have to practice it as well first. It's not like automatic. It takes some work, but not. One of the things I like to say quickly is that Islam has loads of rules, but they're really easy to follow. And Islam teaches that they're really easy to follow, a lot of them. Of course, there's some like higher, if you get to like the higher levels, some of them are harder, but actually that's a bit complex because you can build up to all of them, and it doesn't have to, none of these rules particularly have to be that hard. Anyway, so here's a seemingly irrelevant point. It says about how to find somebody to marry. Okay, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, oh, that was another point. I was going to read something else. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. Completely in the wrong order, but now I've started, I'll continue. Will I continue? No, I'm going to change my mind completely. Okay, so next thing I'm going to talk about, so know how to love for all. Okay, yes. Okay, let's do that one first. So you will see if you go to the Big Questions website, this phrase, love for all, hatred for none. I think it's a really important phrase. I think it's not actually strictly from Islam. I think it's been taken from a Chinese proverb or something. I can't remember what, but it's definitely very much in line with the teachings of Islam. And it's the motto by which my international group of Muslims go by, called the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Anyway, it's just a way of quickly explaining in a sentence what we're all about. But why do I mention it? Because I've seen many times that people, and this comes back to this idea of romantic love, which is actually really destructive, not just funny, because it's about love between these two people and exclusive of other people. So what I mean by that is I've seen it. It's like people are really nice to each other in their little pair, and they are not nice to everybody around them. Now, why is that destructive, and why is that even bad for your sex life? Because you are not two different people. You cannot be this person and that person at the same time. You cannot be nasty and exclusive and horrible to other people and then be nice in your little relationship. You have to be loving all the time. You have to even this very false understanding of romantic love, besides it being destructive to your relationship. So let me quickly explain. If you have love for everybody, you know how to love, and you understand what love is, which is that you give without expecting back. But romantic love is very popular because it fits in with this a general materialistic way of looking at the world and even people, where in romantic love you expect to be loved back. Maybe that sounds silly. Why wouldn't you be expecting to be loved back? But that's not how love really works. And when you start expecting to be loved back, you don't give love unconditionally, and then it's no longer love, and then it affects your ability to have sex in a really good way. What do I mean by that? One of the ways of lasting a long time is to control your emotions. Okay, you can control your emotions by doing all sorts of things. Maybe I'll talk about it. But if you the real point is, you can last long in sex if you're focusing on the other person, if you're being loving to the other person, if you're concerned about the other person experiencing as much joy or whatever as possible. When you do that, loads of stuff works out. And so that's what I'm trying to say about understanding what love is itself. Did I press the button earlier on? I did, yeah. About know how to love. This tells you what to do. Sorry, I'm trying to get a bit technical. I'm just trying to put stuff on the screen, but maybe I focus on it too much. So yeah, what's these comments? Let's have a look at them. It was true. There would be no love for all, hatred for none, very hippie peace. Absolutely. I've been told I'm the unlikely hippie by some of the parents of my students. I'm a teacher, private teacher often. Yeah, because I'm a person who goes around in an anorak and very nerdy. But yeah, yes, I will chill. Thank you, Planet Adams. I will not care about all these presentation things and just talk, isn't it? Okay, so what's the next thing? Yes. So yeah, so I love talking about what seems controversial but actually should be obvious. Okay, so Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. Actually, did I explain my last point? Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, so let's just get on with the order I actually thought of saying these things. So Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said men should not wear feminine clothes and women should not wear masculine clothes. What has that got to do with being good at sex, right? Today, we are really confused about our roles because everybody's saying men and women are exactly the same, but we don't really believe that because we have the Olympics where women race separately to men and all sorts of other things. Yeah. So we don't really believe it yet. We've really confused ourselves in our gender roles and say, and there's no sense a man cannot really feel like being a man. And what that means is a man needs to know he's overall in charge, but not overall in charge in a horrible way, in a sort of way who keeps the calm, who makes the long-term plans maybe or something, or takes decisions when they absolutely have to. But actually in a Muslim family, what happens is because women run the household and the household is which the main thing which Islam revolves around, actually women run things. But there's very clear distinction about the roles. And when men feel dominant, and it's been shown that you need that sort of clear distinction in the roles, including in sex, because people don't know what to do, who should, what's the word, go first or start things off or lead things or take, control the direction. So let's think about this logically, because the science out there is all vague and mishy-mashy and trying to be politically correct. So if you go on the internet, you won't necessarily hear this, but you might hear this is becoming more and more important. Okay. Because people are feeling that when you go the wrong way, when you say that men and women are the same and they should not have gender assigned roles and things like that, then you start experiencing problems, including in the bedroom, which I've read about or heard somewhere in a video. Yeah? It totally makes sense. Okay, because what really attracts men and women to each other is their differences, one's femininity and one's masculinity, one's ability to lead and dominate. Okay, and that also affects the positions you will take, during sex. And when you are in line with nature, like I said quite a few times already in this video, which is men naturally dominate, women are feminine, and they like playing that role naturally. And when I say that, I talk to lots of men and women, not necessarily about sex, but just about generally at work. For example, women say, oh my god, this work, I'm a teacher and it's like really hard work, and they go, I would happily have a marry a man and let him and work and be at home, right? So it's not like, and I think there was a survey done as well. British women, I'm British, but all around the Western world, I'm sure is true. Probably around the whole world, sorry. Women would love to be at home and not compete with men in work, because men are just stronger and they're just like built to do this kind of industrious stuff, and women are doing like other really important things but that don't make money, but that's not how you measure things. Yeah, like taking care of a child and being loving and all that, you don't need to put a price on that. Anyway, so I'm kind of going into a different topic, but it's kind of important because people really hate this idea of gender roles. Okay, so gender roles are super important in your ability to be good at sex. Okay, basically, men should essentially dominate and lead the way. But when I say dominate, that means like lead the way doesn't mean that you ignore the other person, because that again contradicts the idea of what is love, right? Right. So what's the other thing? So fault finding. Yeah, fault finding is an interesting one. I should have got a reference maybe for this, but let's just talk about it. It's not too good. So in different religions, I think, but certainly in Islam, we're told not to find fault with people. Now, maybe you can guess where this is going, because if you're finding fault with each other, you're going to hate each other, and then you're not, when you get to bed, it's not going to work. You got to actually like each other. You got to be happy with each other. Okay. And like, you might think that's obvious, but like, just thinking about one of the schools I was in, recently, the staff room chat, and this person who he'd married, no, he not even got married, he's got engaged, and he was trying really hard to, during the pandemic, find a place to get married. It's really hard, right? Okay, but every day he would be insulting his wife or fiance. Like, that's not funny. Don't do it. And remember, the things you say do affect your brain. And he was generally very negative, and I'm not being hateful towards him. I was feeling sorry for him, because he even said himself he cannot be happy. Not surprising, because if you say bad things and have bad ideas in your head, you're going to be miserable, and you're not going to be good at sex, for example. And apparently, people's ability to have sex being good at it is a huge problem. Erectile dysfunction is going through the roof and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, so let's move on. What are the comments I'm getting here? Looking after children, family, cooking, cleaning is really hard work. Absolutely. And a way of life and you should be respected. Absolutely should be. And what happens in reality, and I was checking some statistics on this, is that just men are just not focused on this stuff. Okay, so maybe let's just say whatever people should do, what actually happens in real life is that women who do go to work end up doing the housework as well, most of it as well. So like they're just doing double the work. And not surprising, people are having less sex because they're absolutely knackered. Like, what a surprise. Yeah. So there are so many things about the natural way of doing things that make things that look really hard absolutely natural and easy. And that's what this show is about. That's why I do this show. That's why I talk about this topic or all the other topics, because there are so many beautiful answers to all the different things. And I want to move on. 54 past. I'm going to mention one more thing. Okay, I'll just throw this in. Men. Okay, this is kind of the last stage. I'm not even sure. Okay, let's just do this. I'm going to stop complaining. I'm going to take the chill pill, as Mr. Adams said. Okay, and not just say my stuff. Okay, and not time it all. Men seek. Where did I copy there? Okay, so it's one of the key things. I wanted 3 categories. What are the 3 categories of things I was trying to talk about? One was do not look at porn or other people. It really messes up your brain, and you hate your own partner. The second what I mentioned was how to love, like understand what love is. Like it's not like you just love one person. You've got to be able to be loving to everybody, the whole of society. Then you become a better lover, as it were. But finally, the last stage of what I want to say is about long-term relationships. Okay, so that kind of feeds into like not getting divorced, and there's so many really clever things that Islam teaches about how not to get divorced. But let's quickly talk about how you get into a relationship in the first place. Instead of finding a soulmate, this soulmate idea, okay, where it's supposed to magically happen, let's think about it a little bit. If you pick a person who has good principles, who is a good person, it's gonna work out, is the short version in the 5 minutes I've got left. So how are Muslims told that they should find somebody to marry? They say, this is a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him: men seek a woman's hand for 4 things: her wealth, her family, her beauty, and her piety, but you should put her piety first. Listen, if you're going to be with a good person, good things are going to happen. You're going to work with each other, you're going to listen to each other. If you're with a bad person, you're just not going to be nice to each other. How is sex going to be good in those relationships? Okay, that's a short, no-brainer way of thinking about it. Okay, and so why do you need a long-term relationship? Because you cannot fool your subconscious, or your conscience, actually I should say. Okay, a very big fan of this conscience thing that we all seem to have about what is good and bad and all this kind of stuff, telling you important things about you that you try to hide from other people. And one of those things is that if you don't have a long-term relationship, that means you're telling your conscience that you don't really love this person. You're just like, they're just some material good that is like a phone or whatever, to be used for a little bit and then thrown out. And then when you know deep down that you don't have love for that person, your sexual relationship with that person is not going to be good. And it actually takes time to learn about the other person, what their needs are, what they want, to communicate that over time. It doesn't just happen. So I did want to talk about a few other things. Let's quickly throw them in 3 minutes. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I like to call this bit Gurus versus Islam. So there's all these internet gurus. Okay, this guy called Sadhguru, who I liked in the beginning, but now he's saying some stuff that is really worrying. Okay, let's put his name there. Maybe I'll click it on the screen. There we go. All right, so you can check him out. So he's made a video and says how to create maximum impact. Okay, he's really good at the thumbnails, I think, because when I watch the videos, I'm like, how do you create maximum impact? Because he's talking really slowly and he's not making any points that I can understand. Okay, so what points did he make finally after watching lots of it, or of his video on how to create a maximum impact? He says, whatever happens, bad things, good things, it's just inside of you. No, that's a bit weird. Okay, so good things is that what he's trying to say is this sort of, it's only, everything is in your mind. Okay, things that are happening are not just in your mind, they are things in the real world. And if we think they're just in your mind, then you're not going to navigate the world or affect the world positively. Okay, and also this is a very individualistic way of looking at the world. Like, you should be thinking, really, how do I help the other person? Not you shouldn't be overly well, let's say, not, you shouldn't just be concerned about how that person, somebody else is treating you badly. You should realize if somebody's treating you badly, that means they have a problem and they're upset and they need to be helped, and you should be kind to them. And when you're kind to all these different people around you, you make the world a better place, and then things get better for you as well. And when you're helping people, actually, that's the only real way of making yourself happier. Because when, coming back to this idea of the conscience, your conscience is watching you and it's saying, are you really a good person? Because when you're a good person, I'll let you be happy. Okay, so when you're helping people, when you're being generosity is a key to happiness. Okay, so saying of Prophet Muhammad, paradise is the home of the generous. So I've got 1 more minute. He says all sorts of things like, don't eat curd rice, it makes you dull. Like, no, there's no evidence. Doesn't make any sense either. Okay, stuff like that. So let's go and the last thing I wanted to say in the last 30 seconds, I'm super greedy. I have to do this. Faith versus logic. This is like my last section, the misunderstandings of faith. I want to tell you that religion is not just about believing in things and just hoping they're true. Islam, in the Quran, it says, like, I don't know how many times, for people to research, to be, it gives you different signs and says, people of understanding, if you really understand, for example, the heavens and the earth, that means like the moon and the stars and how they alternate and all these kind of things. If you delve in them, you realize there's definitely a God who's maintaining this system. So there's a lot of logic, okay, but logic cannot take you all the way. There's teachings from God that gives you insight. All the greatest, so people who don't like this idea of insight, all the greatest scientists and entrepreneurs, they use insight that comes from somewhere. Like Einstein was very big on this thing called insight that would drive all his maths. So you'd come up with an idea and then try to prove it. That's what the greats do. And just to finish off, I'm just being greedy. I just feel like saying this last thing, right? That all people of all faiths should realize that their religion or the faith should not be illogical. It should all make sense. And if you go, for example, to the teachings of Jesus, peace be upon him, I consider him to be a prophet of God. Okay, so and Muslims normally say peace be upon him at the end of any prophet's name. He said himself that if you have a tiny bit of faith in me, you'll be able to do all my miracles, right? So what I'm trying to get across is that we shouldn't have this magical view of religion. It should make sense. It should be logical, because how else can we distinguish between reality and not reality if we're expected to just believe in things blindly, which just doesn't make sense. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you watching. If you're watching live or afterwards, catch you next week. Peace be upon you. Have a great week.